Okay, so welcome to part three of our online lecture. So when we finished the last one, we were talking about bounded rationality, and this is the idea that rather than people actually making fundamentally rational decisions, instead they try and satisfy what they need. So it's not a wholly rational, not an irrational decision, but they settle for what's good enough, and that's often based on the time available to make a decision or resources available. So they come up with something that's good enough. One of the reasons for the need of this is this concept of information overload. So basically this is, means that what we do if we get so much data that we can't make a decision. So the most commonly cited example of this is if you're in a restaurant. And, often happens, say, in an Italian restaurant, and there's 60 options for main course. So often what we end up doing is choosing the same thing over and over again. Oh, I'll have the pizza, I'll have the spaghetti bolognese, I'll have the lasagna, I know what that is. Whereas if you had a much smaller menu with maybe 7 or 8 items on it, you'd be prepared to make a choice. And the general view from science and people who've researched this is that people can actually look at maybe 6, 7, 8 things and compare them, but beyond that, it just becomes too much for people to deal with generally. So this idea then of satisfying is where we expend just enough effort to make an acceptable decision. And it's important to remember that a lot of multi-objective problems don't have a single answer. So, for example, what's the best car for me? It depends on is safety, fuel efficiency, performance, comfort, appearance, a whole range of variables that we have to do. And depending on, what mood I'm in, or, what's just after happening to me. So if I've recently been in a car accident, I might think safety is really important. And, if it's a long distance journey, that do a lot of driving, comfort is really important. So depending on what weighting we put on each of those, we'll come up with a different answer. But the reality is that many of those weightings are subjective to whatever mood we're in a day. It's not like the 100 meters where, Usain Bolt is objectively the best runner in the world. So, the approach we take to deal with this is an idea of heuristics. So heuristic comes from, I think it's a Latin or Greek word for thumb, and it basically is the idea it's a rule of thumb. So it's an approach to problem solving that's practical. It's not guaranteed to be optimal, but it's good enough. So one of the things we discussed is, which ads do we go for when we're looking at Google, or which recommendations do we do. Sometimes people actually will just always go for the second from the top, or they'll go for the second cheapest wine on the menu, or they'll go for whatever the chef recommends or the specials on the board. So it's rules of thumb that allow people to make a decision relatively quickly. So we kind of continue looking at this idea of psychology and social shopping, and we think about, social proof. And that's the idea that if a whole lot of people select one option, it's probably the right one. So it's kind of like herding behavior. So what we have is this idea of winner takes all in internet businesses. So Amazon and Google dominate the market. And basically people are saying, well, if all my friends are doing it, if everybody else is doing it, it's the right way. And that causes what's known as conformity, which often happens when people change their beliefs as a reaction to group pressure, real or imagined. This is of great interest to politicians and to people who are trying to bring about social change, is they actually want people to change their beliefs. However, it can be dangerous if people conform to the wrong ideas, or we lose the ability to debate because everybody is conforming in response to this kind of either real or imagined group pressure. So, you have a trend like the hipster trend where people set out to be different, but after a while, so many people joined in that, most of them were actually conforming with each other. So there was nothing actually original about it in the first place. So, from the marketing perspective and we're interested in what makes people conform. So we've got cultural pressures, So the pressures, from our culture. Fear of deviance is the idea that we can be punished if we do something. Our commitment to the group unanimity, size and expertise. So how big is our group? How united are they in something? Some people are more susceptible to others and personal influences. Some people are very independent minded. Some people are just awkward or contrarian, and they'll do the opposite to what other people do. So then, what actually what gets us to change? So, authority is based on recommendations of an expert in a field. So, we value somebody's opinion, so we follow it. Sometimes, we can change based on affinity. We like other people. We emulate them. This is kind of the concept of referent power. The other thing as well is that if we actually perceive something to be scarce, we're going to increase our efforts to get it. Often there's this idea of reciprocity, which means that we genuinely feel an embedded urge to repay a debt. So somebody does something for us, we feel the need to do something in return. Something else to watch out for is that people strive to be consistent with their beliefs and behaviours. And this is really awkward because a lot of the time, we have to have contrary beliefs at any one time. And one of the issues that arises from that is when we have to deal with contrasting beliefs. We suffer from something called cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is the feeling of discomfort when we're dealing with kind of two thoughts that are in contradiction to each other. And a lot of the time this happens in politics, where somebody admires a particular politician or stream of things, but they think that something they're doing is wrong. So, what will often happen is that they'll actually change their view as to what that person is doing is wrong, such as their admiration for the politician, or alternatively, in order to overcome the cognitive dissonance, they may actually switch their allegiance to another politician. But this reflects back to shopping as well, because we're actually interested in how we can actually change people's behaviour. Okay, so having looked at the biases around shopping, we'll talk briefly about the benefits of social commerce. So, what it's providing the marketer an opportunity to monetize social media investment by boosting site and store traffic, and it converts browsers to buyers and increases average order value. So social commerce is a very effective way of getting people to actually move on from looking and evaluating to doing the purchase. It also, it solves the dilemma of the social media return on investment. So, for a long time, people were wondering what they were actually going to do and how they were actually going to make money out of social media. By using social commerce, it's possible for organizations to make money. And another advantage is it gives a huge amount more data about consumer behavior as it relates to the brand. So it's actually creating data about our customers on a regular basis. That's of use. It's of use for customer relation management and a marketing tool. So we can identify how our customers are using the brand. We can actually improve that brand and find ways of cross-selling. So that improved customer relationship enhances the customer experience. Social shopping makes sharing brand impressions really easy. So it's really, it's much easier to do our referrals when we're engaged in social commerce than it is, say, when we're down in the store. And it also gives opportunity for brands to keep up with the competition and differentiate themselves from others in the e-commerce space. So social commerce allows a really differentiated product that may be of great value to the customer. But and there's always a but when it comes to social media. Things to watch out for is a review could be defamatory. So you might write something that's completely, if it's false and it's unfair about somebody, they may consider it to be defamatory. So you can't actually write a review slating a restaurant to question its hygiene unless there's some basis in the truth. Would you trust an Uber driver? So we have a taxi regulator in Ireland, and there's background checks and police checking and whatever. So for some of these Uber drivers, there isn't any checking. Something about Airbnb New Year's disasters. So if you scroll through last year's tweets from the MN329 hashtag, you see those examples of people who rented out their house for New Year's Eve and discovered their entire house was destroyed with tens of thousands of euros of damage. We wonder about High Street. Our main streets. How can bricks traditional shops survive if everybody does their shopping online? Another concern around social commerce is that does it actually create greater choice, or will we end up with huge monopolies like Google and Amazon providing 95% of the market? There's certainly privacy issues around social commerce. We're sharing information about what we're selling. If I was to book a flight online and then share the information about it, somebody seeing it might realise that my house was likely to be vacant. They know information about me, so it impacts my privacy. And then it's a real question that comes up, and it's back to one of the questions that was asked during the week about the assignment. Does social media marketing actually drive sales? Does it work? There's questions around that. So it's important for organizations to actually measure that, and that's what the next part of the lecture, when we look at social media research, and next week's lecture when we're talking about social metrics, looks at. So the next couple of slides are a couple of questions, a couple of multiple choice questions, and are examples of them. So it's an idea of the sort of questions that might come up. I think the first one isn't really a great question because social commerce is a second, first, fourth, third. That's not the sort of things we're interested in. And what we are more interested in is something like, examples of social commerce include all the following except. So ratings are obviously part of it. Consumer solicited media and microblogs are interested. You could say shopping related apps are important in social commerce, social models. So it's important to identify which one isn't relevant. So it's just having a look through those, look at the material, give you an idea of the sort of questions that come up. If you have any questions about these, if you can't figure them out after looking at the book, again, use Twitter or the Moodle group to raise any questions. Okay, so that concludes the third part of this week's lecture. In the next couple of sections, we're going to look at social media research, talking about the types of data that we use. But like I said, if you have any questions, tweet them or stick them up on Moodle. Thanks.